Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're happy to see you. Put an emoji, please, in the chat that represents your city, your region, or state. Okay, what is that, Sasha? What kind of animal is that?
Oh, so actually, Julie put this in, but it's our parachuting beaver story, which is where they relocated. I don't know.
I remember that story. Yes.
Yeah, they relocated a bunch of beavers, I think in the 50s, and they used, I think, surplus parachutes from the war, and they relocated them and they built these cages and they parachuted them out of a plane, and then the cages opened and the little guys just went off on their ways, and apparently there are still descendants of those beavers in the wilderness area.
Sasha, where are you? Where is this happening? Or where did this happen?
Oh, in Boise, Idaho.
Oh, right. Okay.
That is the best thing I've ever heard.
That is such a cocktail party, thing to roll out.
Oh yeah, we use it for fundraising, definitely.
Who do I see that's in need of a possum emoji and why? I don't know of a state that is known for its possum.
I moved here in 2019, and then I quickly noticed that I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and people love possums. There's a lot of little pop art about possums, and all of the subreddits and stuff. People are constantly putting up possums, so there are a lot of possums around, but I don't know if there's more to it than that.
The more we learn.
There's pretty metal shirts that people have made with possums also.
That's awesome. All right, well, we are just a few minutes past the hour. People are trickling in, but we're gonna go ahead and get started with our session 2. Welcome everybody to our network mapping part 1 session. Thank you to everybody who was able to make it happen to join in person with another colleague. I think that is going to be really useful for folks who are going to be brainstorming together. We have that great mural tool that should make it really seamless for those folks who weren't able to do that. So this is going to be a great session. And thanks for setting aside all this portion of your day to be intentional with us about your engagement work. I'm Kelsey, the Digital Engagement Manager for America Amplified. And just a show of hands really quick, who was able to do the mission homework? Seeing lots of hands.
Oh, wow.
Sweet, you guys are rock stars. Yes. Okay, cool. Don't feel bad if your hand isn't going up right now. You're gonna have a chance to refine that before the next session, but you guys are rocking it, so awesome. Just a quick agenda. We're gonna do a recap of session 1 to get us started here. We're gonna do a brief chat on design thinking. We're gonna intro network mapping, which is what we're laying the foundation for today. And then we're gonna get our hands dirty and go into those workshops. After that, just some housekeeping. So about half of this session is workshops, which should be really fun for y'all. But first, I want to introduce you to a new face on the America Amplified training team. Brittany Howell just joined us as a trainer, and she's going to be working with a lot of you over the course of the next year. So excited for her to be on, and you'll get to hear from her in a moment. So going to let her and Paula take it away with a recap of what we did last time.
Yes, thank you so much, Chelsea. I'm Paola Marison, and I am the other engagement trainer. So I'll be working closely with you guys after our intensive training. But yeah, last session was great. So thank you to all who came. And if you couldn't be there, the recording is in our America Amplify member portal. You can share that with your newsroom. So if you feel like somebody in your newsroom can benefit from that, feel free to do that. And speaking about the last session, can someone give me some quick takeaways of something they remember from last session? Do you have any? Oh, I see some hands. Emily?
Might be lingering
Oh,
hands who did the homework, so
yeah.
maybe a chance for those new ones to come up.
Yes,
Or if anyone just wants to pop off mute and shout it out.
yes. Feel free to do that.
That none of us like how we currently cover elections.
Yes, that was a big one. And we'll definitely be discussing more of that. Oh, we have somebody in the chat.
We talked about our different tiers of engagement as was thrown out in the chat there. Awesome. Anyone else want to? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a breakout session that I was in where we talked about some challenges, including how it can, be challenging to cover some of the smaller races in the communities that we cover. When we're also trying to cover some of the big statewide issues and races.
Yes, that was definitely some of the biggest topics. And I mean, I have some takeaway of my own, so I'll share some of those with you guys. Like you just mentioned from our last Jamboard exercise, we had one question for you guys, and that was, as a news consumer, what frustrated you the most about the election coverage? That was the top answer, was the lack of local context. So we're talking about hyper local races. And there was just a total lack of context on that. And then that was followed by politicians having too much power. So whenever politicians are answering questions that just benefit them as opposed to the questions that the community have for them. So there were a lot of things that we were dissatisfied about, as you can see in the Jamboard. But now we also get a chance to fix those. So Jen Brandell from Harkin, she actually shared the formula for change with us. And what she said about this was that change happens when dissatisfaction meets a vision and meets a plan. So we begin by, just identifying what the dissatisfaction is. And that's what we did with the Jamboard. Then we come up with a vision and we create a plan for that. Another takeaway that I really liked was the one that we just mentioned, that were the examples of engagement in action. And Chelsea shared with us real examples from 2022, where we talked about the 3 levels of engagement in action. And that was the foundational, the expanded, and then the full scale. The foundational is that audience engagement that happens when you do outreach on a website or on social media. Then you have the expanded engagement, and that's when you build upon the foundation and you begin to dip your toes a little bit into community engagement, where you engage people who aren't currently in your core audience. And then you have the full scale engagement, and that happens when you've laid the foundation and now you start building that trust in new communities. And then lastly, from our last session, we left you with some homework, and that was crafting your missions. And I was so glad to see so many hands. So thank you so much, and shout out to everybody who did their homework. But we do have this example here of WNIJ, and they talk about having the value of an informed vote, and also how they believe the election coverage should go well beyond just a rundown of results. So I think those are just 2 key things that really jump out whenever you're talking about your mission statement. It just reflects about what you believe in and what your station is about. But we'll be discussing that more with you. Now I want to pass it on to Brittany. She's going to talk a little bit more about the mission and the why.
Thank you, Paula, and hello, everyone. It is so great to be here with all of you today. I'm really excited to work with you over the next year, and I'm also so excited to spend a little bit of time today talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is, why do we do this? It can be so much work, so why do we do it? Looking at the big picture why for engagement in our election coverage, our mission here is to empower communities to participate in our democracy. We do that by providing accurate information and genuine engagement. And the key to doing that has actually been part of public broadcasting's mission all along. So if you'll check out the text of the Public Broadcasting Act over here, some of the key phrases here are be responsive, and address the needs of unserved and underserved audiences. Engagement is how you find out what those needs are so you can be responsive. It's the tool for opening up that conversation and allowing people to shape the coverage that they rely on. And there's a good metrics and financial case for engagement too. Last time we talked about a study that looked at about 20 newsrooms that used an engagement tool called Hearken. The study found that the stories that came out of that tool, the ones that people pitched ideas for and that the newsrooms acted on, actually performed better in some ways than some of the other stories. The more we show our audiences that we're listening to them and really taking them into account, the more likely they are to engage with us, whether that's sharing our coverage, whether that's attending our events, or sometimes even supporting us financially. So that's why we do this. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be expanding on the how we do this. One of the ways we're going to do this is using digital embeds from Hearken to collect feedback from our communities about what they want and need to know. But inviting questions through Hearken or through some other tool is just one piece of the puzzle. We want to really go beyond that to building lasting relationships. This training series is to help you with that relationship building piece. This fall, we're going to help you figure out how to go beyond your core audience during the 2024 election cycle. We'll help you think about who you want to reach, how you want to reach them, how to measure your impact, and how to get buy-in from both community partners and others at your station. Then in January, you'll start to put everything you're learning into practice, starting with the Hearken tool. So just to hammer it home, our big picture why for using community engagement in election coverage is the belief that informed, engaged communities are the cornerstone of a vibrant democracy. And to that end, Chelsea, how do we do this? What is our next step?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to stop my share really quick and then restart it because my sound is behaving poorly. And here we go. Everything should be running smooth for you all again. So how do we do that? We are going to be digging into something called design thinking to think about how we do that. Show of hands, maybe just your visual hand or drop an emoji in the chat. How many of you are familiar with the idea of design thinking? Seeing a handful of hands go up, which is awesome. But it's definitely still a new idea, seeing definitely a few folks not chiming in, and that's pretty typical. This has been trickling its way into the journalism and public media world over the past few years. For those who aren't initiated, it's a nonlinear 5-phase framework for finding solutions to problems or for designing solutions. And it was created by the Stanford School of Design. There's endless resources available out there online, books written. You can even get full degrees in design thinking. But we're just going to skim the surface and explain why we're using it. So this is that 5-phase system that the Stanford School of Design rolled out so many years ago. The first phase that we talk about is to empathize, and that's when you do your deep listening, where you really learn who your user or your audience or your community is. And at this point, there are so many possibilities for what the solution to your potential problem might be. The second phase is to define what your problem is. Once you identify what it is that user needs based on everything you learned while you were listening, that's where you really define what your problem is going to be. Then you start to ideate based on your user and their need. What's a potential solution to that problem? So our ebb and flow of how many possibilities there are is a little bit big again. And then we, when we think we have a viable solution, we make a prototype, fewer solutions. That's a pilot, a soft launch, a mini event. This is the exciting part where we really get to actually make that thing that we've been thinking about for the past 2 phases. Then finally, we get to test that thing. We put it out into the world and we get so much feedback. In design thinking, we say feedback is a gift. And after we test it, we may need to jump back and ideate more. We may need to do a little bit more listening. We may need to tweak the prototype, but we do have a deadline, and eventually we hit that deadline and we launch. But in public radio, we really love to jump in at that ideate phase. We have a brilliant idea and we're, okay, let's go to pilot, let's prototype it, let's put it out there. That's the test. And then it maybe doesn't do as great as we think it could. And we're like, well, if only we'd had enough money to market it, to show people what we'd done, it would have gone well. But really, we skip those first two steps that ensure that success and make sure we're actually addressing what our audience or community needs from us in that realm. So why do we go through this process? Elisa.
Yeah. So, you know, I have to admit, I'm a bit of a design thinking skeptic until I really begin to get into it. Why are we going through this whole kind of academic-y process thing? We kind of get stuck in our heads and we get stuck thinking about things the same way we've always thought about things. So let's watch this video and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many
Okay.
passes did you count?
Go ahead and
Correct answer. This is
yeah.
a test of selective passes.
How many
But did
people?
you see the gorilla?
Ah. Okay. Show of hands. How many people saw
video
the
is from-
gorilla? A few. I sure did not. The first time I saw this video, I did not see the gorilla. So that, you know, it's just to demonstrate that we have selective attention. We're not really thinking as much outside the box as we need to at times. So this is why we're doing this brainstorming session. And I know it is not something that we do all the time. I certainly don't in public media, but I think it will open your mind up to new possibilities. So we're asking you here to go beyond the easy answers. When you're brainstorming, you come up with a question and really embrace the gorilla. Okay, back to you, Chelsea.
All right, so as we dig into our process, before we can start doing our deep listening, we need to figure out who exactly we are listening to. And the Who, the band, we're just all gonna listen to the band, the Who, right? No, not really. We're gonna listen to our stakeholders. But what is a stakeholder? A quick etymology lesson, because when we really understand the root of the words that we're using, it helps us frame what we're actually thinking about. So what does stakeholder really mean? A stakeholder is a person with an interest or concern in something. Easy enough, but we can break it down further. So what does at stake really mean? It could be something that's at risk. For example, people's lives could be at stake, or it's something that's at question or at issue. You might say the logical response is to give up, but there's more at stake than logic. We're all stakeholders in something, probably in a lot of things, but what do we think about when we're identifying key stakeholders? When it comes to the election, we talk about the stakes being high. Who in your coverage area are the stakes highest for? So stakeholder and network mapping. That's where we start to map out who those stakeholders are, who the stakes are high for regarding the election in our case. It's a way to quickly identify who cares about the topic that you're seeking to connect with audiences or communities about, or who's affected by that topic, and how you can reach them. You can apply this tool to a lot of things, your beat, a story, or a special project like this one. And to do it, all you need are a pen and paper, Post-its, or a virtual tool like Mural that we're going to use today, or a Jamboard like we used last time. So today we're just going to do the first half of the stakeholder mapping process, which is deciding what network of stakeholders we're actually going to map. We know some of you have a broad group in mind that you want to work with in the upcoming election. This process is going to help you refine that idea and narrow it down to a more specific group within a group, perhaps. And we're going to start with a big picture brainstorming session. So, in design thinking, we talk about flaring and focusing. Flaring is when you are thinking of everything that you can. It's doors wide open, possibilities are endless. And then as we start to get deeper into the process, we start to focus in on a single solution. So right now, we're flaring. I like to think of this as the spaghetti on the wall activity. There are no bad ideas. What we're going to do when we send you off into your breakout rooms is you're just going to think about who exists in your coverage area. Everybody who exists in your coverage area. If you have already narrowed things down and know that you want to work with a specific group, who exists in maybe a section of your coverage area. But we have some rules for our brainstorming. So in our world of brainstorming, there is no judgment. It's not very productive brainstorming wise when we're shooting down each other's ideas. There are no bad ideas. In fact, we encourage wild ideas. We want to build on each other's ideas, like yes and, like you're in improv class. We want you to stay focused. We're going to do this exercise for 10 minutes, which is actually a pretty brief amount of time in the grand scheme of things. But we don't want you to be using set your phone aside, close your other browser tabs, just focus on this. Avoid all of your distractions. We can set our phones aside for 10 whole minutes. I have faith in us. One thing per post-it note, so don't make lists on your post-it. If it's a new list item, it's a new post-it. And then last thing, go for quantity. Like I said, no bad ideas. We would love to have you have 100 post-it notes with like 5 magic ones in there, rather than like you spending the whole time trying to think of 5 magic post-it notes. So we're going for quantity. All right. So who's in your coverage area? What community do you want to reach and who is in that community? Your coverage area, as we're thinking of it, is the entire city or region or state that you strive to serve in your reporting as a station. When you get going on this, you're probably going to think of the usual suspects at first and then start to slow down. That's okay. That's usually how it goes, but that's when you start to get creative and think outside of who you're usually thinking of. No community within your coverage area is a monolith. You can always break it down and get more specific. When you're putting these post-its on your mural or on your wall, think of individual people that make up that group. You can think of demographics. You can think of demographics within demographics, organizations that exist in your coverage area, occupations, people who like a certain hobby, towns of neighborhoods, any person or group of people who make sense. These prompts, these ask yourself and think of, are going to be in your mural, or if you have that PDF version of that was sent out, you can refer to it there. And just as something to think about for those of you who maybe know that you want to reach Spanish speakers, for example, during this election, you still have decisions to make. Brainstorm within that group, who makes up that group of people. Think of neighborhoods. Where do they congregate online? Spanish speakers who are second-generation Americans that just graduated from high school are a completely different group of people than middle-aged Hispanic business owners. And you're going to approach them in different ways. And we want you to think of them separately. So here's how we're going to do this thing. I'm going to open up my mural here, and let's get that into my shared window. So I'm going to demonstrate this in mural. So folks who are just getting into their mural, I'm going to show you how this works. Open yours now, but don't start to do anything. If you're using Post-its in person, all you're going to need are your Post-its, a big blank space on the wall or a whiteboard, and a Sharpie. And when you open, I'm just seeing some questions in the chat. When you open your mural, sign in as a visitor. You don't have to actually create an account or anything. You can just type in your name as a visitor. You'll be able to reopen this link over and over again. So you won't lose access to anything. For folks who are in person, just replicate the idea of what I'm doing with your Post-its in person. Going to show you how to navigate mural. So you'll see this little toolbar down here at the bottom. If you zoom out, you see a whole bunch of stuff or a few things. You can zoom in to your spot. I want you to navigate over here to this blue one. If you're in this little map icon, you can click around and visit different areas. Hopefully you can find yourself into the freeform brainstorm. If you're having trouble, someone will pop into your world and help you out. I like to zoom in somewhere between 20 and 15% so that I have a big white space to work in. And then from there, all you have to do is double click and you have a Post-it note. And then we start thinking of who we want to work with. So our America Amplified team, who should also have this specific one open with me here, we're going to think of people who exist in the Midwest. So I am from Cleveland, and I'm going to think of people that exist in my neck of the woods in Cleveland. My dad lives there. I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to say Big Ten schools. And then I'm going to say the Ohio governor, migrant farm workers. So that's the process. We're just thinking of as many people as we can in our region or coverage area. And you're going to get 10 minutes to do this. Okay. Part two. That was a doozy. I bet hopefully you have a lot of post-it notes on your wall or your mural or in front of you on the table. And there's probably a lot of people who would be important for you to engage with during the election. So how on earth are you going to pick? We need to narrow things down. Odds are some of these sticky notes are redundant or represent similar stakeholders, or they might just be a category that others go under. So we're going to do a little bit of organizing. By the end of this process that we're about to go through, your post-it note area is going to look like this little graphic on the right side of the slide here. Your category name and a bunch of post-its under it. Some bigger, some smaller, some of them might actually just be one post-it note. So we're still thinking about who's in our coverage area, but we're going to start breaking down those post-its that we just put everywhere. We're going to organize our spaghetti into different noodle piles. So we don't want to make our categories too big or too narrow. Think about whether it makes sense to group your geographic areas together or to separate them, to group certain demographics together or to separate them. Like I said, it could be just one post-it or many post-its. And if a post-it can fit into multiple categories, just choose the one that feels best. This isn't necessarily an exact science, but we're just thinking our best here. So some possible groups that you might do are people who are religious leaders or people who live in the east suburbs, K-12 education related people, Black-led nonprofit community groups. There is a wide array of ways that this could be organized. So hopefully we have a good selection of Midwesterners here in ours that we're going to use as a example for how we might organize things in our region. So if I were the one who was organizing my Midwest coverage area, I would zoom in a bit and I would, let's see, we have some migrant farmers, we have Somali immigrants. I'm going to put my farmers and my migrant immigrants together. I'm going to do my family farmers. We've got a lot of farm things here. I'm not sure that I would ultimately put my migrant farmers and my all these other farm ideas together, but I'm just seeing what I've got on the table. For now, I'm going to make them a post-it group called Ag People. And then we have the Ohio governor and Mike Pence and not my dad, and probably not Somali immigrants are the same type of people, but I'm going to call these some big wig polls. And you're not doing this right now too. I'm just demonstrating really quick what this next exercise looks like. We're gonna do, oh, we have migrant workers and migrant farm workers. So I'm gonna put them closer together because they might be the same. So this was just a super quick and dirty demo of what this exercise will look like. Right, welcome back, everybody. That was a good double brainstorm session. Paula, do you want to take it away with a discussion?
Yes, thank you so much. I hope that everybody had a good brainstorming session. I popped into a couple of rooms and saw that some of you were using, your walls were full of sticky notes. So you just spend all this time thinking about the many different groups and categories that make up the people that you serve or that you could serve. So let's talk about that. Raise your hands and or just shout it out if you want to. What stood out where you were creating those categories? Do we have any volunteers?
We really want to find a way to reach out to a younger community, especially people who have just reached voting age or about to reach voting age, because I find that people around my age, younger than me, have a hard time being engaged politically because they don't have a resource to be educated about the topic. So then they feel like they don't have a voice.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes. And we'll definitely be discussing more, you know, with our one-on-ones and throughout the intensive training on how to reach those people. Okay, I see Mayan. Am I saying that correct?
You are. So I was going to say we were in agreement on the younger voters. We'd like to figure out how to reach them. We also, South Carolina has been and is becoming even more a retirement state. We have a lot of people who come here from New York and Ohio to retire, and they typically are much more conservative. And so trying to figure out also how to get some of these new voters, much more conservative white voters who are very active in elections, trying to get figure out a way to also target some stories to them as well.
Yeah. And does anyone else anyone else experience the same thing? Can we see some hands? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're in North Carolina here, in Charlotte, and we also have a lot of newcomers to the city. It's kind of a transplant city, so that was one of the ways we broke people down, is like kind of by tenure of how long they've lived here, and a group that is a priority to reach is like newcomers, and there's a lot of people who have come from other states and other cities with different governance systems and different city council systems, whatever it might be. And I think that kind of dovetails with another of our focuses, which is these low income areas of the city that have been designated quote unquote corridors of opportunity. We've been trying to focus more coverage on those communities. And I think in both instances, there's a lot of opportunity for kind of nuts and bolts, like, utilitarian, here's who does what in our government system, and here's how it works, and those sorts of topics. So that was something we were talking about in our group.
Yeah, that's definitely really interesting. And I think the direction that you guys are going is going to help you narrow that down way more, where you're going to be able to put down that strategy plan. So Laura, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. We have a huge sprawling metro across Kansas and Missouri. We're like one of the most sprawling metros in the country. So one of our challenges is how to drill down into voting issues in different parts of the metro. Like we have north of the river, and we have the east side, which is disproportionately people of color and low income, and we have Johnson County suburbs, which are hugely affluent and new, and we have so anyway, sort of north, south, east, and west, and a whole bunch of different cities in those quadrants. And so we're struggling trying to figure out if how much to use geography, because a lot of the geographical characteristics affect the voting behavior and affect the races and that kind of thing. So, I'm curious if other people have challenges with their geographical spread and the different demographics that constitute the many cities in their metros.
Yeah, we can talk about that deeper in your one-on-one with your coaches, but it could be worthwhile to think about choosing a specific metropolitan area, and then when we do the network mapping, you'll have an opportunity then to like break it down by further demographic yet again within that geographic area. So we can have a conversation about that with you specifically, but that might be a way to move forward just with this part. A couple other raised hands. I think Zach and Paula were raised first.
I was just going to agree with my fellow Ziegler there that, yeah, we have, a city of 1 million people, but then we branch into 4 other counties that are really rural and things, get really different. Everything from the, blue is blue city center of Tucson to a place I'm sure a number of you have heard of, Cochise County, Arizona.
Yeah. And then we'll take that one last question from West Virginia Public Radio before we take a bio break.
Hi, we've just joined today and we're glad to be part of it. We've got a situation in West Virginia. We cover the whole state. We're West Virginia Public Broadcasting, and we have on our board people that live on the state border residents, because everybody makes more money in every state around us than West Virginia. So every election and legislative situation is where we can't keep bus drivers because they're going to Maryland and Virginia. We can't keep corrections officers and we've got a crisis. We can't keep healthcare workers. We can't keep foster care workers. And we want to know how to get to those areas without just reiterating the same stories over and over.
Yeah. And I think we'll definitely, like Chelsea said, dive more into that as we continue with the intensive training and our one-on-ones. But now, Chelsea, if you didn't have anything to add, I think we're all ready to take a quick 5-minute bio break. So if you guys need to grab some coffee, some water, some tea, just stretch your legs, go and do that. And whenever we'll come back, we'll continue with our session.
All right, hopefully we have everybody back here with us. Hello, hello. I'm using my voice to summon you from wherever you were taking your break. Can't see everybody, so I can't quite tell if we're all back in action, but I am. Hello. So before the break, we were in that flare moment of our design thinking. And now we are going to focus. So we're going to use a tool that I like to call the impact effort matrix. It has a few different names in the design world, but I use that term. So this is an exercise that might be something that you want to go through again. We heard from so many of you that your geographic area is huge. When I was at KUER in Salt Lake City, we covered the entire state, and it was unwieldy, to say the least, to try to think of everybody at once and to think of how it made most sense to categorize everybody. So as you are going through this, it might make sense to think of this particular this training as a demo session for you to then take back, do on your own with timers with a narrower group in mind. And that said, as I go through this exercise, you might be tempted to work ahead or want to know where we're going, and that's not something that I'm going to give you, sorry, to the overachievers who want to work ahead. We're going to use this tool to hopefully help you reveal things that you might not have otherwise seen. So we're going to think about the potential impact that you can have in your coverage area. The impact in the context of what we're thinking of is how well is this community having their information needs met for the election. And then our effort is how challenging would it be for you as a station newsroom to meaningfully connect with this community or audience, given the resources you currently have to address their information needs during the election. So what's going to happen this time? Last time I was showing you what to do and then we sent you into breakout rooms and you did it. This time you're actually going to stay in this big everybody room, and I'm going to demo the exercise live, and you're going to follow along and execute the same thing either with your post-it notes or in Mural. It sounds like actually most of you are using your post-its, so I'll try to emphasize those instructions. So let me pull my Mural tab into here. So this is what we've created here at America Amplified for our really scrappy attempt at mapping out the entire Midwest. This was between demoing everything for you guys. So this is maybe not our most perfect thing that we've ever done, but we are going to be zooming out. If you are in Mural, you'll see over here you have this green section. And I believe there's a PDF that Abby has of this that she can drop in the chat so you can see these instructions at the bottom if you're not using Mural. If you have your computer there with you and you want to pull up the Mural for these instructions, you might find them useful. But using your map tool down here, you can navigate to the green space. And what I want you to do, if you're in Mural, or you can just do this a lot easier when you're in person, is grab those category post-its off of your last activity and move them over into a space where you can start to make a big matrix. If you're in person, you're going to need a whiteboard or like some big post-it paper like this, which I always have on hand because I'm kind of a crazy person who uses it by myself all the time. Or if you don't have that kind of thing, you can just use like 4 pieces of printer paper, and that's going to become your eventual like quadrant workspace. So right now, go ahead and move all of your post-its over to a space where you can start to make what's ultimately going to be a 4-quadrant matrix. If you're working in Mural, you might find that you need to resize your post-its when they get there. And we're moving our main categories. Before I jump to the next part, any questions about what we're doing there? Everybody succeeding either in person or in Mural at that endeavor? All good. All right, I'm just gonna resize my post-its here so that they're all gonna fit into, oops, I don't need to have a connection there. They're all gonna fit into what I need to do next. So once you have all of your
Looks like Megan has a question.
Oh, yep, Megan.
I must have accidentally hit my hand. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
All good. As we referred to it earlier, just stretching. Yeah. Okay, so once you have all of your post-its beautifully aligned over into a space where you can start to make a matrix on your in-person workspace, whiteboard, paper, etc., draw a horizontal line, an x-axis, to reflect mine here. And on the left side of that, I want you to draw or to write low impact and high impact. And remember, we're thinking of whose information needs are currently well met for the election versus whose are not so well met during the election. They should all be, none of them should be stacked. So we want a nice spectrum, nobody on top of each other. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Bigwig polls, they have quite well met election needs. Let's see, higher ed people also probably pretty well met. Okay. Go ahead and put new citizens on the fire part. Let's see, I'm gonna put.
Just to reiterate, all of these Post-it notes need to be on a single line along the bottom. They cannot be stacked up on top of each other. So you're going to want to line them up. And obviously this is you're guessing, you're hoping.
What did I do? And as you can see, people that use Mural all the time sometimes make mistakes in Mural. So we're just going to do
We're lining all of them up along the bottom. We're not categorizing them right now.
Correct. I'm just taking your categories that exist that you used, that you created in the last exercise, moving them over and lining them up along the bottom.
So just the categories, maybe.
All right, and once you've achieved that, space them out nice and evenly. And this is a non-scientific effort, so it's okay if you might need to do this again. I want to think about it again. Now that
Let's give them some time. I think we need a little more time.
So if we created categories, just plop the categories in there?
Yep, just plop the categories.
Not the Post-its, but the categories.
Correct.
I
Just the
see.
categories. And
Okay.
Chelsea, are you wanting them at this point to line them up from least to high, or just to plop them in?
No,
just
least
low to high on
Low
that
to high.
bottom line. So if you can
And could you just remind us low to high in which way?
Yep, low is low impact is folks whose information needs are currently well met. And high is folks whose information needs for the election are maybe not so well met. And then just drop a chat if you're ready for that next step here. I'll give you one more minute to achieve that spectrum on the bottom row of your matrix, that x-axis. All right, just 30 seconds.
One thing I'm noticing is it doesn't look like all the Post-its fit along. Is there a way to stretch the board so it's a little bigger, or you just have to resize the Post-it notes?
Resize your Post-its, not the board. Alrighty, it's okay if you haven't fully achieved that. I'm just going to tell you what your next step is going to be. And that's going to be in person. I want you to make a vertical line, a y-axis, so that you have a nice big L-shaped thing on the left side of your matrix. So you have an x-axis and a y-axis, like in geometry, algebra class. I wasn't good at math. Which class was that in? That you're creating here. And
So it's you're going from least amount of information or agency to most, or because I'm
so
seeing like
yeah, low to high impact, and then now we're doing our vertical line if you're ready for that.
Okay.
And so on your y-axis, your vertical line, that's going to be the least at the bottom here, the least challenging group for your station or for you to potentially reach, and then the most challenging for your station to potentially reach. And once you have an L-shaped graph with your post-its all along the bottom, evenly spaced, and then that least challenging to most challenging vertical line set, you are going to move your post-its vertically on your plane. Do not move them side to side. You've already decided how low or high impact you can have. So, for example, my bigwig poles, they come to us. They're not very challenging to reach. Higher ed people, not so challenging to reach. Adult community volunteers and members, maybe slightly more challenging to reach. Our non-citizen workforce can be pretty challenging for us to reach. K-12 after school programs, relatively easy for us to reach. Maybe have some hoops to jump through. Hobby-oriented identities, that's sort of ambiguous. We're gonna put it in the middle there. New immigrants, also I'd say that non-citizen workforce and new immigrants similarly challenging to reach. Military affiliated groups, probably somewhere around those K-12. Rural school peeps, I'm gonna say that because I live in a rural area, I can get to them pretty easily, but other folks live in urban areas and it's far for them to get to. So I'm gonna put that somewhere up here in the like that area. Rural ag people, harder to reach than school peeps. New citizens, I'm gonna put them somewhere around here. So while this is, you'll have sort of a scatter plot when you're done. And I'm just sort of spreading my things out nicely. And I'm going to give you some time to have that discussion and make those decisions. And you'll have until let's see, about 2 or 3 more minutes to do that. Any of my my colleagues who might be working in mural boards might be able to tell me how progress is going.
They're getting there.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions about this part? I'm gonna let y'all go till 30 after or half past the hour for this particular part of the activity, and then we're gonna do the last part and we'll talk about why we just did this. So make your last decisions, debate those last post-it moves. And, all right, so in-person folks, you're gonna take a Sharpie or dry erase marker or whatever you need to do to make a horizontal line through the middle of your square. And if you're in mural, you'll see that you have these lines here on the right that you can move around next to the words. And you can just grab those and put that horizontal one right through the middle. And then you'll do a vertical one, like a plus sign right through that, so that you have a 4-quadrant square, and everything will sort of be divided between those. Can I get some nods of success that we made our plus sign through the middle? Or maybe an emoji drop or a poem. And then if you've achieved that, when you've achieved that, in the top left square, I want you to put luxuries, write the word luxuries, or grab that word that's in your mural and move it over there. Top right should say strategic. Bottom left should say quick wins. And bottom right should say high value. So I'm going to leave this up here for a moment so that you can see what your ultimate production of this matrix will look like. And I'll give you just a few more minutes to do that. Anybody having trouble? Any questions?
So should we move more of the post-its itself over or just stick with the categories?
That's the categories.
Okay.
If it turns out that you might want to, like, now that you know what you're doing, execute this again, we can give you the timing to go through, like, so that you can run it yourself and do another round that maybe fits with post-its that fit the exercise best. And we have plenty more time allotted for you all to achieve this, so if you're still aligning your post-its along the bottom, deadline is hit. It is time for you to start moving them vertically. And if you have questions about how to move them vertically, pop off mute.
I just like this is such a big thing to tackle that I'm still even processing like what the categories of people are. So I'm doing my best, but it feels so incomplete that I'm
Yeah, and that's that is a intended aspect of design thinking, is time boxing things and forcing you not to overthink decisions, and then have those discussions after you've made them and question why you made those decisions and sort of address your biases too.
Forgive me if I missed this, but like how many categories around should we be having?
I'd say like a dozen is a 15, 20 is a plenty. Yeah.
Oh, we only made like 6 categories. We have a ton of post-its. Okay.
But your categories are very, very broad.
Yeah.
So that, like, instead of agricultural community, it might be, you know, ag workers and, you know, rural homeowners or something like that. But that's okay. This is introducing you to a way of approaching this that can be done. Again, I noticed that KUNM and KRWG were all in the same mural board, which probably got a little bit confusing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
I don't think we were we? I don't, Anthony, were you on your mural board?
Yes, we were. Yeah, we're all in the same.
And so I think after this, I'll send you 2 different mural boards if you want to do this again with your staff to really think this through, because it is a very interesting exercise that can really be helpful.
Could you zoom out on your mural? Could I see what you're working
Yeah.
with?
So do you want to see my post-its from the other side, or just what the quadrants look like?
Yeah, quadrants.
Yeah. How's this? Do you need to read the post-its better?
No, I was hoping to get a bigger view, like a wider view of the quadrants. I'm just seeing like one tiny corner right now.
Oh, on mine? On my shared screen?
Yeah.
Is that what everyone's seeing?
I can see the whole thing.
No, I can see the whole thing. I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, I think I figured it out. For some reason, super zoomed in. I don't know what's going on, but thanks.
Yeah. All right, we have 3 more minutes on this total allotted time for this activity. So if you haven't started dividing up your quadrants, now is the time to do so. So I want you to finalize those vertical moves and lay out your quadrants. I also want to acknowledge that this exercise is well achieved in a personal setting, in an in-person live setting where we can sort of circulate around and talk to you about it. And, Zoom is a challenging space for training that we are navigating and are grateful that it exists. So thanks for bearing with us through this, and I hope you're still finding it useful.
Hey.
All right, this is our last minute of the thing to make your final decisions. Lay out your quadrants. Once you've laid out your quadrants, no more moving.
I think everybody I'm looking at is ready.
Okay, we love that.
Does anybody need more time?
Speak now or forever hold your post-its. All right, so what the heck did we just do and why did we do it? So your quadrant, your exercise should look something like this, or like mine, like this. We are going to talk about why that works. So now you have your big square divided into 4 smaller squares. What this is going to do is help us make an informed decision about what audience or community we want to focus this project on based on our existing resources and the potential impact that we could have in that audience or community or with that group of people. So to decode what each of those quadrants mean, that quick wins, that bottom left, those are the things that you can likely pull off with fewer resources. They may not have the most impact. You may not be serving the most needy group during the election, but they're still important. The luxuries, that top left, the items in this one are, they're groups of people that are pretty difficult for your station to reach, and they likely don't have the greatest need during the upcoming election. We look at our high value, that bottom right quadrant. Those are the ones that we really encourage you to consider. They might be a little harder to reach sometimes. They might be a little higher up toward that midline, but they definitely, they're far right on the low to high impact spectrum. So they could really benefit from your attention during the upcoming election. Their information needs are maybe not being met so well. And then strategic, that top right, those are high impact groups. They're underserved when it comes to election information, but building meaningful connections with them would be more resource intensive for your organization. So they're really important, but you probably will need some more runway to consider developing a strategy to reach that community. Or if you're feeling bold, they might be that high impact, strategic group that you choose to focus on during this project. So with that in mind, we would love to have a discussion with you about what you learned about the way that you're thinking about your community, who you might reach during this project, and what questions do you still have? Paula and I are going to lead that discussion with you. So raise your hand, pipe in.
Yes.
I'm ready to talk with you.
So Sasha over here at Boise State Public Radio. It was nice to just break stuff down, especially with larger, we have a really big geographic area like a lot of other people. And sometimes I get caught in the, oh my God, I can't cover all of this. So it's nice to sort of break it down and put some boundaries on it so that you can make decisions.
Yeah. Elaine, someone who I've dragged through this process in the past.
Not my first Chelsea Post-it pony ride. I think what really stood out for me, and Sean Higgins and I, our politics reporter, were in the same room. What really stood out for me is how our aspirational goals that we talk about a lot and aim for a lot, how the resources are challenged, especially in this fiscal year. And, I came into this going, oh, it'll probably be one of these two. And they both kind of landed in the strategic area rather than the high value area. So that's an interesting challenge to me, because it breaks my heart a little bit. And also gives a bit of a dose of realism.
Yeah.
Add to that, Sean?
I think the biggest limiting factor for us, Chelsea, you mentioned that we cover the entire state of Utah, not just Salt Lake City. So the resource question of us getting out into the other more rural parts of the state is kind of the big limiting factor for us. And I think particularly with some of the uniqueness that we've learned about Utah politics recently is rural Utah or voters outside of the major population centers have more impact and influence than ever before, and that presents a unique challenge for us as far as resources are concerned. So this was interesting. I really like breaking it up into quadrants to really kind of, it just helps with like a visual tool to help look at strategic ways to look at all this stuff. Yeah
And I'll say two things. That one, those strategic, that top right corner, definitely not off limits, but I think it is, like Elaine said, that dose of realism of like, okay, like we're gonna have to think about how we do that. We need to do that, but it's maybe not the low-hanging fruit that we could. It's not low-hanging fruit. We gotta build a ladder. And then the other thing that you guys are gonna learn in the future sessions is that one way that you might find that something that seemed really resource intensive and impossible for you might become attainable is finding the right partners to work with in those communities. You don't have to build a relationship from scratch. You can go and build a relationship with a community partner who then becomes a super valuable asset in your relationship building with the rest of that community. So we're going to dig into how you find good community partners in those places that you want to reach, etc. Carla, and then Brittany, do you want to be our chat reader offer after that?
Hi. Yeah, so we cover the entire state of Texas. So trying to narrow down our kind of like wish list was hard. I think that we can understand why we picked our high value, but we want to go at, like, can we not do high value? Can we?
No, like I said, it's not like those strategic ones are off limits. It's just like a perspective provider. So yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you're not, there's no, the only ones that I would maybe like discourage you from doing are those luxuries, those,
yeah.
I mean, maybe, I don't know who's on your luxuries, but a lot of times, those luxurious ones are what they sound like.
Chelsea, can you explain the difference between strategic and high value?
Yeah, I can reiterate that one. So the strategic ones are folks that it will be more resource intensive for your organization to build meaningful connections with. You've sort of said through your mapping out that these folks have a great need, but it's also more challenging for your station to reach. So you know it's important. That's why they're up there. And these high value ones are the things that you could probably pull off relatively quickly with the resources that you have now, depending on how much bandwidth you have at your organization and what you're putting all of that bandwidth towards. You're going to make a decision based on way more information than just like which box did it land in. But those high value ones are the things that you might, you're like, we have a relationship there that we could start to do something with. We've started engaging in that community and we're good to go. And they have a great need for it. So, yeah.
I was going to say that these mural links that we gave you, you are welcome to take them and have a staff meeting where you bring in more people from your station to do the similar project. And you will have notes on all of this will be in our web portal so that you yourself can lead this in the way that Chelsea has.
Laura's got a really good question in the chat. Hard to think about groups discreetly. Seems like some communities cross quadrants depending on what segment of the community we're talking about. How do you break that down further, Chelsea?
Yeah, so one thing I might suggest that you do, if you have the time between sessions, is to choose maybe that non-voter group and do exercise 1 into the brainstorming of everybody who's in non-voters, and then categorize that, and then map those categories on this quadrant. The other thing that I will maybe reveal to you is that in the next session, we are going to do that true network mapping. And I'm just going to scroll out because you're going to use these same mural boards next time. And way over here in this hidden zone that some of you might have accidentally traveled to, you're going to make a network map. And so you're going to put the community or audience that you've decided on in there, and then you're going to start breaking it down into who are the stakeholders inside that. And that is also going to reveal folks who you might be able to work with. It's gonna detangle all of those mingled folks inside of the community that you're thinking of, or the audience that you're thinking of. Does that help answer that question, or at least address it?
I think so. That helped me think about it.
I also really appreciate the idea of going in rounds or iterations, that as I've looked at all of these different, broad brush categories, figuring out which in the quadrant I might want to plan around, and then doing another round of what, like, if I want to focus on, say, new African-American voters, what are all the groups within the new African-American voting community, and then how I would rank them. So in other words, doing these 2 exercises again could be really helpful once I zoom in on a particular group. Not that I'm committed to that group, but it'll help me think about what the kind of resources it might take to engage and involve them.
Well, thank you guys for engaging so thoughtfully in these exercises. I hope that it was enlightening for you. I hope that it was useful. And with that, it's time for us to talk about your homework and what you can expect from us next. Elisa, what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, I hope that was valuable for you all. I mean, I think it does create a really interesting, visual chart of who you can reach and who you might reach. And next session, which is on November 15th, we've got some time. We'll be digging into this a little bit more. As I said, you're going to be able to keep this mural link and save it. If you worked on paper, suggest that you take a picture of it so that you can come back to it. But if you have the mural, you'll be able to come back to it. And again, some of you who had to do this on your own or did it with too big of a group, you might want to step back and spend an hour and a half and do it with more people in your newsroom, from your marketing department, from wherever you feel like, people can really have something to say and something to offer in this kind of exercise. We do recommend, if possible, that you meet with some other people in your newsroom, some decision makers, to look at this map and to determine, among all these different categories that you came up with, is there an audience or a community that you really ought to be focusing on for election coverage? I know some of you already have a pretty good idea of a community you want to focus on, and this exercise should help you narrow down that community so that you really have a group of people within your community that you can really try to reach during this next year. Please come to the next session. Be prepared to talk about that community that you've decided to focus on. At the same time, that's one part of the homework. The second part of the homework is to continue to refine your mission statement on your own and with your colleague and with your newsroom as a whole, if you can. We really do see that these mission statements, once they're formulated, they become like a North Star that you can continue. You can make a lot of decisions about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do based on what you've decided is your mission. Our next session is Wednesday, November 15th. Have a wonderful 3 weeks in between. Feel free to reach out to your coach or your trainer at America Amplified if you have any questions, if you want to go over this. I know some of you have one-on-ones still scheduled. Some of us will be doing our second round of one-on-one meetings in early December, and we'll continue talking about all of this. We will share these slides and the recording of this session on our member station web portal. If you have any problems reaching that or getting to that, just let us know and we will get you there right away. Any questions at this point? Don't run away too quickly. We have a little bit of a Zoom poll for you to do before you go. And again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I know it's a long session, but hopefully it was valuable. Now we have a poll coming. We'd love you to give us a little bit of feedback. Thanks so much, everybody.